So hi, everybody, and welcome also Michelle. And we had a little, whatever we did over here, miscommunication about when this was going to happen, but I can't do it on the 7th. So I'm doing it now, and Tyler will get it probably posted on the 7th. So everybody will get this information anyhow. So what we're responding to is a lot of the conversation about complaining. And as you might already know, I produced a recording many years ago called The Cure for Complaining. And that recording, which you can get on our website at AlisonArmstrong.com, and Tyler, I'm sure, will post whatever he needs to, so you can do that. That addresses the source, or you could call the anatomy. So what we were working on at the time was persistent complaints, like somebody's been complaining about the same thing for days, weeks, months, years, maybe decades, persistent complaints. So what is the source of persistent complaints? And so we start with taking apart what makes up a complaint. There's 3 different parts we discovered. And then how do you address each part so that it causes the complaint to disappear? And I recommend it to you. It works awesomely, even with yourself, which a dear friend of mine was sure he didn't complain until he came to that class anyway, because he loves all my stuff. And he realized that he doesn't complain out loud. He was very proud of himself for that. Hadn't done that for decades, but he complained in his own head. So he used the cure for complaining even to interact with himself. So that's what I'm not going to do right now. I want to come at complaining from a different place, because I hate to be redundant. If somebody else is doing something, I don't need to do it. Yay. And if an earlier version of myself did something, I don't need to do it. There's just too much I've learned in the last, it's 32 years now. I've learned too much to want to spend much time saying the same thing over and over again, even though I'm willing when someone really needs it. So we're looking at this from the point of view of what can you do about complaining, which one of the biggest things about complaining is, unless you're complaining to people who share your complaint, like you're complaining about something in your community or in the world and they share it, there are people who will connect over complaining. But in our interpersonal relationships, complaints are going to be a disconnect. And quite honestly, complaints are a turn off. And we talk about that in A Cure for Complaining, but I'll just tell you, mostly people complaining, how they're expressing what they're expressing, they occur as weak. They occur as weak, and weak is not attractive. Now, this doesn't mean you can't need anything, because you can. And we're going to talk about that. But to complain and complain and complain, it just occurs like, oh, geez, I don't want to put my life in this person's hand, this person's hands. I can't trust this person. How are they going to protect me or provide for me or be a good partner for me? They're too weak, which is what complaining conveys. So I want to talk about where it might come from and how you can transform where it comes from so that actually you can connect in a way that people's lives get better, especially yours. So there's 3 places. Well, no, there's actually, I'm going to talk about 2 main places and what they have in common. So this doesn't have to be a persistent complaint. This is not what I'm working on in the Cure for Complaining. This would be like something that you complain about. You might persistently complain to your girlfriends about what your boyfriend doesn't do, right? Or your male friends about what your girlfriend does, or, you swing a different way. You may just all be complaining about the same thing. But it's going to cause a disconnect when you're complaining to the person about themselves. And usually that kind of complaint is expressed in in certain words, and I'm going to try to not imitate the tone of voice, because men are very sensitive to women's voices. And when I imitate women complaining, literally my boyfriend covers his ears. It's nails on a chalkboard. So mostly it's a screeching voice, or snarky voice, or it's got barbed wire in it. And it usually is worded as a question, like, why don't you take out the trash when it needs to be taken out? Or why don't you bring me flowers anymore? Just this blanket statement that you just speak it as if it's the truth. Or I can't count on you for this. See, it's so hard for me not even to do the voice. But so funny. But these complaints are an expression, I assert, of two things that get mushed together, that if you start separating them, you can be more powerful and more effective. And the two things would be expectations and needs, actual needs. You could call them requirements as well. Things that you require in order to get done what you need to get done, in order to be the way that you're committed to being. Things that you can't do that or be that without. So what's the difference between expectations and needs? Many people think they're the same. Well, you can tell an expectation by it has the character of, and is often the word should is used. Expectations are things that we think should happen without us having to do anything about it, or shouldn't happen without us having to do anything about it. They just should happen. That's why they're expected, because they should happen. And that expectation may have arisen out of something somebody used to do consistently, so they should keep doing it. However they were acting while we were dating, they should still be doing that while we're married. And both men and women change after marriage. They even change around engagement, right? Or from dating to boyfriend, girlfriend. A whole bunch of shoulds show up as we go from one state to the other. Well, now you're my boyfriend, you should be doing this. Except for we don't say you should be doing this. We say, why don't you do that? My last boyfriend always did that. Why don't you do that? My ex-wife, even my ex-wife, and she was terrible, she did that. I don't understand why you don't. It's really hard for me to not do the voice because so expectations, often there's the word should involved, whether we say it or not. Often there's a sense of this is owed to me. That's why we think we shouldn't have to do anything, because this is owed to me. And it might be owed to me because, well, I'm your wife. You owe your wife that. Or we may think it's owed to me because of everything I've done to you and done for you. I have expectations of you because of what I've provided for you. And I think you should do all those things. And I shouldn't have to tell you to do them. I shouldn't have to ask you to do them. So there's a sense of entitlement. There's a sense of, I've already earned this, even if it's just by virtue of being born. I'm your mother, I'm your daughter, this should happen. There's a line in a song that the rest of the song is really amazing, but there's this one line, that fathers should be great. Expectation, right? Being a father is intense, and figuring out how to be great at it is a huge job. But the expectation that all fathers should be great, they're doing their darndest to be good, to take care of everything they think is their duty to take care of. But we have these ideas, parents should, and they shouldn't, right? In romantic relationships, wives and husbands should and shouldn't. There was a question about what to do about neighbors who complain. What I tell you about what to do about all complaining, it applies to that. But there's even a should. Neighbors should do certain things and shouldn't do other things. So That would be the expectation part. And what's different between an expectation and a need or requirement is that when your expectation is met, you're just not pissed off that it wasn't met. You're just not mad. You're just not upset emotionally. You're just not indignant. That's what distinguishes an expectation from something you actually need. Because things you actually need, there's a cost when you don't get it. You can't be or do the thing that would have allowed you to, that you require it for. And when it is met, you often can do and be what you need that for, and even more. When we have needs fulfilled, all of our capacities grow in many different ways, like sleep, for example. Sleep, when we get the sleep we need, it can change everything. So what happens, and I used to say it in a kind of rude way, and I still think it's rude, but I'm going to say it anyway because it fits. What I would say is that a complaint, or you could say a complainer is a chicken with a need. A complainer is somebody who needs something and doesn't have the courage to own it. And that's what's present in both expectations and needs that are expressed as complaints. There's a lack of ownership. So, for example, when we used to have live workshops, I spent, like 26 weekends a year leading live workshops. And somebody would say, "It's cold in here." Really? They thought, it's fine. It was just a statement of fact. But in the tone of voice was expectation that it should be a different temperature, but there was no ownership. It's cold in here. And sometimes they'd even go, "And other people think so too." Weigh that against if somebody said, "I need it to be warmer in here. I can't really concentrate. Could you make it warmer in here?" Which one is more likely to be acted on? Which one is more likely to be, "Oh, I'd love to help you with that"? It's not the complaint. Complaints will only cause people to do something who feel dependent upon you. It's just like being upset. Being upset, the only people who will act in order to not have you be upset are people who feel dependent upon you. And women are really susceptible to this because we feel dependent on people, that we're herd animals and we're not going to survive alone. So we'll be the most likely to change what we're doing in response to a complaint. But any man that we're going to actually respect, that we're going to have admiration for, attraction for, isn't going to act based on interacting that way. They're not going to respond to something that has no ownership. That's why when we say the trash needs to be taken out, they know darn well the trash doesn't need to be taken out. And if we owned it and said, "Honey, I need the trash to be taken out. Would you do it for me? Would you do it for me now or in the next 12 minutes? Or I won't have any place to put everything from cooking dinner and it's going to make me just stop." Oh, so what it would provide, if I take the trash out, you'll keep cooking dinner. You'll keep cooking tonight's dinner. Well, suddenly you're talking to the worth it calculation. This is worth doing. And you often even don't even have to tell what the consequence is. You can just say, "I need it." And it was one of the things that I learned in my marriage was that I had developed believability, that I only said I needed something when I really needed something. So I didn't even have to explain. I just had to say I need it. And if Greg could do it, he would. So again, it's this ownership. Ownership isn't present in complaining. And this is also, though, the key if you want to interact with, like, for example, there was the question, how do I not complain so much? Well, how to not complain so much is look beneath the complaint. is there something I need to start happening or stop happening? What is it? And do I really need that to happen? Am I committed to that happening or not happening anymore? Like, am I determined I'm going to have that in my life? Because a lot of complaining, besides ownership, there's no ownership in it, and there's no commitment in it. There's no seriousness about it. And this is one of the consequences of complaining, is we stop being believable. So it's one of the things we talk about in our Understanding Men course, is that men value facts over feelings. They're going to act on facts, not feelings. They pride themselves on that. And they're ashamed of themselves when they act on feelings in the face of facts. And a fact to a man is information from a respected source, from a credible source, from a believable source. So complaining without ownership, without any commitment to eliminate this thing that needs to stop happening or cause this thing that needs to start happening, complaining without any of that, it tells people we're not serious. And it makes what we say not credible, not believable. Like if we keep complaining about not getting enough sleep, but given the opportunity to go to bed when we're tired, we don't. Now, there are a lot of reasons why women don't do that, and we explain it in Understanding Women, but they don't know all the things that distract us and call to us to do them, even though we're exhausted and that we're driven to do that. They don't know that. So when we say we're tired and they say, well, go to bed, and we don't, I'm tired just becomes wah, 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 wah. It's not actionable. It's not meaningful. So if you take what you complain about and have a sit down with yourself, okay, is this something I really need to have happen or not have happen? Like, it's not just how upset I am when it doesn't happen. When it does happen, there's a big payoff. There's a big benefit. Is that a need? And the answer would be yes or no. Or it might be no. I just think it should happen, damn it. Oh, that's an expectation. Well, this thing I expect should happen, do I actually need it to happen? No, I'm just irritated when it doesn't happen. It just annoys me because I think it should happen. Well, those are good things to do releasing on, to do release work. I recommend the Sedona method. It's something we use and teach and love. It's really good to sort out your needs and expectations and release your expectations. Let them go. And it's amazing what happens when you do that. The freedom, the space, and then your communication becomes more clear. You become more trustworthy, and people act more quickly and more. It's even beyond willingly. Like they want to know. People who care about you want to know what you really need. They want to know how to make a difference in your life. They want to know how to cause the upside, the who you can be when you have enough sleep, for example. So we have to examine it. If you want to stop, right? How do I not complain so much? Notice what you're complaining about. Check and see, is this an expectation or is this a need? And truthfully, it could be something that you need that you also think should happen. I need it, and I shouldn't have to ask. I shouldn't have to ask for the trash to be taken out. That's why so many of us are still taking out the trash. This is one of the things we cover in the Queen's Code and Understanding Men. But it's just an example of classic needs that we have. So how do I not complain so much? Examine. What are you complaining about? Is there something I need to happen or not happen? Or do I just think it should happen or shouldn't happen? How do I deal with a spouse, a wife or a husband who always complains? Well, do the reverse, but only do the reverse if you need them to stop complaining. If you have a complaint about them complaining, but you're not going to do anything about it if you have no ownership of that. You need them to stop because, for example, it might be sucking the life out of you, or has you not like them, or has you lose respect and admiration for them. And that's a huge cost in your union, in your marriage, in your sex life. Then you might want to get committed to them not complaining. I created the cure for complaining when I got committed to my husband not complaining. And something that was really funny was when I was telling him about it, he said, I'm not a complainer. And I almost was like, what? And then he said, I'm a whiner. I would have to be more committed to complain. Oh my gosh, we laughed so hard. He did. He just whined. He didn't own what he needed. And he wouldn't even put enough energy in it to complain. So that was how we got to start eliminating complaining. But it's like, what do you need? If someone's complaining, like, hello, is there something you actually need? Or is this just something you're expressing? Or what do you want from me when you're doing this? Like, don't just put up with it, which is what we mostly do. We kind of steal ourselves, or we try to distract somebody, get that train on another track, walk out of the room, escape. Oh, please don't let me be stuck in a car with them. All they do is complain, right? We have complaints about people who complain. If you're committed to it not happening, get serious about it, then you can take it on. And the thing to find out about them is, what do they need? And it would start with, I need you to own what you need, to ask me for it, to set me up to win at it, to respect when I can't do it. And I'm not going to tolerate, I'm not going to put up with. It's actually not tolerate, that's a different word. I'm not going to put up with complaining. I won't have it. Now, one of the things I love about my life now is my boyfriend, Dan. He rarely complains. He has a herniated disc right now. He's in a lot of pain. And I've only heard him complain about it once. But he'll own it. Like, he'll say, I have a bitch. And then I'll just be like, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, okay, I'm done. And he really is. And it's always less than 2 minutes. It makes me laugh. It's awesome. So transform your complaints. Transform your complaints into what you really need, or that it's just, it could be a habit. Energy is addictive. I got some questions here, like, is it bad to complain for no reason? I don't think people complain for no reason. I think we don't do anything for no reason. Is complaining a good way to release stress? I don't know. Is it for you? It's usually a way to create stress for the people around you. Is complaining toxic? Ugh, it is to me, but I don't know scientifically. Is complaining bad for your mental health? Again, I don't know. But my best friend, sometimes she needs to complain. And she'll just ask, can she? And so she's respecting what it might be like for me. But because she asks, and then the way that she does it, and she's so darn cute, and I end up teasing her or making it bigger, like exaggerating what could be done about the thing she's complaining about. And then she ends up giggling, and I get my friend back. It's wonderful. But it comes from, first of all, more than 30 years of trusting that that's not who she is, and it's not who she wants to be. And her gratitude for me listening to her, and knowing she's going to come out the other side herself again, that in that moment she needs to complain. And I believe her, because it's not what she normally does. People who always complain, it could be a habit, or what I started to say was, there are certain energies in our bodies that the feel of it is something that we crave. The feel of it may even be something we identify with. Like we know, I know I am myself if I'm sad. I know I am myself if I'm angry. Or my husband, Greg, he knew that he was himself because there was a car or motorcycle he wanted. He was sure he couldn't have. He identified with the feeling of coveting something with no hope of getting it. Now, that's opposite of how I am. I practice contentment. I don't want to covet something I can't have. But that's just how he was wired. And it wasn't until the last year and a half of his life that he actually busted out of that. He actually could see it and stop being it. So the energy around complaining, I want, and I should, and I have, and when, that kind of energy that it has, you could get used to it. It could feel like home. You might not recognize yourself if you didn't have complaints. When I first started studying men, I said this thing to a colleague of mine. It just popped out of my mouth. I said, near as I can tell, you can complain about a boyfriend or have one. Because the boyfriends we complain to and about, they go away because they're not winning and they need to win. You know, the wives we complain about, they may take longer, but they'll eventually go away because we need to be able to give you what you need. We want to give you what you need, and we need to succeed at giving you what you need, and we need to be appreciated for giving you what you need. Complaining is all the opposite of that. So it goes back to, which Tyler was letting me know that so much of the theme was, how do I not complain so much? Take it apart, what you're complaining about, and notice the effects. Notice, yeah, you can get together and all have the same complaints, and it might make you feel a little better that you're not alone, but does it change anything? Does it get anything to stop or anything to start? Are you empowered? Are you a bigger, better person out of it? Or are you diminished? See, these are my values. Empowerment is one of my values. Contentment is one of my values. Partnership is one of my values. Speaking up about needs that you're owning is one of the kindest things you can do. It's one of the ways to be a partner and to ask the other person, if you're willing to give this to me, is there anything you need from me? Is there anything you need from me to be able to do that for me? And as we talk about in the Queen's Code, which if I could wave a magic wand, everyone would listen to the audiobook. You can only get it on our website and listen to it on our app, Cure for Complaining, same way. But if I had it all my way, we would even ask if in the relationships we're committed to, and I mean committed to, like want to keep them and have them be in an upward spiral instead of a downward spiral. And we teach us in the Queen's Code to be brave enough to ask the question, is there anything you need from me that you've given up on getting? And I think the answer to that question is often what we complain about. We really need something. We've given up on getting it from this person, but we might not have ever really asked with ownership. We might not have ever asked and owned it and told them what it would provide. And we might not have ever asked and owned it and told them what it would provide and what it would look like. A lot of people are trying to give us their interpretation of what we said we needed. So many pitfalls there. And like someone complaining about not getting enough attention. The person they're complaining about not getting enough attention to may respond by complaining to them more and think that that's how they're paying attention. Well, I'm complaining to you. So we have to describe what we need looks like. It would look like this. This is what you would do. And you wouldn't do those things. That's not it. And then asking the question, if you're willing to give me what I'm asking you for, is there anything you need from me to be able to? And then if you're really committed to that need being met, when somebody says, I may need you to remind me because I have a habit of talking the way that you need me to not to, or I may need you to tell me exactly when you need it, when I can act on it, not when I'm in the middle of something. They may have an answer to that, and that's actually good. When someone tells you what they need to give you what you need, that's good because it leaves the initiative in your lap, which means you can cause it whenever you need to. But then you might have a complaint that you ran out of complaints because you're getting everything you need, and the things you don't really need, you let go of those expectations and you're free and you're not yanked around all the time by what should and shouldn't happen. You'd be free. So I love some of these questions. How do I complain without complaining? I know people who do that. They try to complain without complaining, but it's really a complaint. So I'm not sure you can complain without complaining, but you can absolutely get more of what you need without complaining. Absolutely.